So speak life, when the sun won't shine and you don't know why. Look into the eyes of the broken hearted, watch them come alive as soon as you speak hope, you speak love, you speak life.
Hi, and welcome to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, author of the book One Dog's Faith. This program brought to you today by Malone Dentistry. And you know, I was taking inventory the other day of my life. I've got an average size house. I've got cars for every driving member of our family, 3 or more meals a day, running water, heat and air conditioning. And you know, compared to the people in the Appalachian community, I'm filthy rich. I feel very blessed to have what we have, but to look around in our neighboring areas, it's difficult. But there are people who stand up and try to help. In the studio with me today is Emmette Thompson, Executive Director of Mission of Hope. And man, what a story Mission of Hope is. Hi, Emmette.
Hey, Tom.
Nice to have you in here today.
Oh, wow. What a privilege to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure. Totally. First of all, I'm sure there are people in this area who know what Mission of Hope is, but there are some that don't. First, let's start out by having you explain what it is, and then we'll talk about the history.
Okay. Well, you know, the Cliff Notes version, Tom, if I could,
Yeah.
we're an Appalachian relief ministry. We're based here in Knoxville, but as we kind of lightheartedly reference, we're a road trip away from everywhere we serve.
Everywhere is out of this area,
It
but
is,
not too
and
far.
Not too far. By design, it is. You know, I've been so blessed to meet a number of wonderful nonprofit organizations here and their directors and leadership, and that's a real blessing for me.
There's a lot going on in this area.
There is, and this area is blessed to have that.
Yeah. A lot of compassionate people.
Exactly. We serve an area that we'll, I guess, get into here in a little bit that really is a mission field that legions in number have flown over and driven around, going somewhere else maybe, and totally unaware of it.
Pass right by. Yeah.
It's not a mean-spirited omission or anything like that. It's just an unfamiliarity with, in this day and time, there could be that kind of need there. And the there is basically former coal mine boom towns that are almost ghost towns now through the Appalachian Quarter, the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah.
But I'm sure that poverty and people who are really hungry and struggling, it's just right down the street.
Well, it is. Doing what I do for 18 years now as Mission of Hope's first employee, full-time employee.
Yeah.
I have read, I've researched, I've rolled my sleeves up, I've jumped in. I still feel like a rookie at what I do, but
I don't think so.
It's really amazing. You know, I've come to realize, Tom, on somewhat of a personal note too, and if you can't find it to do in this city, you can just about create it, but there are a lot of opportunities of need. But I think, and I know for me personally, some of the organizations that I've run across, I've been amazed at their depth of coverage, their target of emphasis, and totally oblivious. I never thought about that need being here in the city. Mm-hmm. And if you just take that and go into a geographical area that has been challenged because of just the mere logistics challenge of rural Appalachia,
right,
and the areas we go to, and that becomes, you know, something that's just exponentially. It's kind of the problem's gotten worse because of some of those challenges. And that's where we were birthed out of. A wonderful story of how a man who wanted to bring the attention to this area of light. That, yeah. and he did.
Yeah. So you're talking about Bill Williams.
Exactly.
Bill Williams, the amazing anchor of Channel 10. He's retired, but he still has a presence.
He does, and you know, Tom, I've done this for years. Bill and his dear wife Wanda represent so many people that I never would have met if not this privilege extended to me. But as I got to know Bill, you know, and found out some of his story, I like to refer to Bill Williams as the Tom Brokaw of Tennessee. I don't think that offends him, but
I'll agree with that.
You know, Bill has had such a history of passionate sharing with a lot of groups. And as much as he's known by certain groups, I don't think I'll ever forget, for a long time, anytime we got together to do a Mission of Hope story, he would always tell me about a Monday's Child story.
Oh, wow.
And even in his own words, some of the ones that look the most difficult to be adopted would have a waiting list of people to do so.
Because that program.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And Children's Hospital, a lot of people in Knoxville know, of his passion for that. And there's so many causes that most people don't even know that he's played a part in, including myself, that he's just had that kind of heart and spirit. And he's been a blessing to our community more than just in journalism.
Sure.
On the
more
6
than
and
just
11 o'clock
reading the
news.
news. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Talk
Okay.
about how he kind of birthed Mission of Hope.
Well, really the story of Mission of Hope began, I shared with you a moment ago off the air about I've been blessed to get to speak a lot to churches, civic groups, corporate sponsors, schools.
For awareness.
For
yeah.
just telling about what we do. And
Sure.
At my own church, I've been involved in different areas of ministry. And, I sometimes tie in a few things in addition to just talking about Mission of Hope. But I believe with all my heart that when you see or hear about or read about a need that so consumes you, you cannot not do something about it. You cannot not respond.
Something just tugs at your heart.
It won't let you go. It's a pounding, throbbing, whatever you want to call it.
There's God in there too.
Amen.
He just fuels us.
And Tom, on that lead in, I think first and foremost for people of faith or non-people of faith, it's passion.
Yeah.
You become passionate about something, and it won't
It
let
just
go of
grabs
you,
your
and you
heart.
can't let.
Yeah.
But I really believe, and I'm a theological imbecile seated next to you, my brother.
Yeah.
But I believe it's very simple. I think for people of faith, that's the Holy Spirit and its power of nudging you. You've got to do something.
Totally agree.
I think without hesitation. So
there are things that we have been given talent and
Exactly.
provision for, and it's not just for our enjoyment; it's for us to share.
it is. That's so well worded, and I've seen that in people, for in wonderful ways for a number of years now. But as far as Bill's role, as I got to know Bill and I met him my first year, I was hired with no nonprofit experience. There was no guarantee there'd be money there to even fund this position. But and
It sounds
maybe
like
later I'll talk about a little bit about my own story of how I got to that
I definitely
moment.
want to hear that.
But I met Bill, and as I got to know him, we were having lunch one day, and I'm the guy that asks the stupid questions, and I asked him, Bill, what made you do your first story that had a lot to do with starting this ministry? And he, in mid-bite, put his fork down and said, I should have told you this when we started. Said, for years, I would do stories in areas and maybe getting off the beaten path, coming back with our photojournalists. I'd drive through these former coal mine, booming economy towns that had just really fallen on hard times with the demise of coal.
Yeah.
And he said, Emmett, I'd see the depth of need. I'd come back, and I could tell talking to people at dinner parties, events, I could just see from some of them's the look in their eyes. They probably didn't believe me, but they weren't going to dare say anything to me. So that's when I felt like the plight of these areas needed to be told. And he did it, Tom, in a very wonderful, compassionate, powerful way. He did a 2-part series called Hunger for Hope.
Hunger for Hope. Okay.
And it dealt with that dire need, very gut-wrenching, compassionate stories. But here we come back to that element of passion and Holy Spirit again. There are a lot of people that saw that, no doubt, and were touched by it, but there was one lady in this community that was consumed by it, so much so she started calling Mr. Williams and would not stop till he would meet with her.
Wow.
And the moment they met, he knew immediately within moments what was driving her. She had heritage in an area near where he did his story up above Harlan, Kentucky.
Okay.
And her name is Julie Holland. Julie had the passion, first ever in her family to graduate from high school, much less go to college and graduate. She had the desire, and she told Mr. Williams in tears in his office, I know of a little elementary school near where you shot that story, and I'd just love to go back there. and take warm coats for those kids as winter approaches, food boxes for their families, and maybe a few toys on a mission of hope and give it out. They did, and from that, this ministry was birthed.
Wow. Just like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know that Channel 10 has a history of traveling around.
Yes.
The Heartland series,
Oh, yeah.
Is kind of the happy stories of a lot of our heritage in the Appalachian community. But there are so many sad stories and so much poverty. It's just hard to take in.
Tom, it is. We are extremely blessed that WBIR has deemed us worthy of year-round support since this began.
Wow. Still.
But yes, and basically Russell Biven took the baton of Mission of Hope and some others,
What
but
a nice
primarily
guy.
Russell
Yeah.
when Bill retired. And one of the things that's been interesting to me, this has really bloomed and blossomed in a unique way. We're not a high-tech group. We're kind of under the radar.
We don't need to be.
We don't
just
need
get
to
your
be.
hands dirty and go.
You do. Bill's story, which touched Julie's passion, which caused her to put together a response. Kind of what happened from there is Julie's pastor at the time, Dr. Larry Fields, who used to be the pastor at Central Baptist Bearden.
Okay.
He's been retired from there a few years. He heard about what she did with family and friends after the fact and was blown away. And he actually got the pastor of Central Baptist Fountain City and First Baptist Concord on board. And by the next time they went, there was some vibrancy, there were some volunteers, there was some energy.
There was some church power.
There was.
Yeah.
And from Bill's perspective, he helped get radio and newspaper involved. And that's when that first year at Christmas, they came up with this very simple concept of taking 55-gallon barrels and putting them out at retail locations. And from the handful that we had that first year in 95, as this has just been blessed to grow, one school in 95 has now led us, as we approach Christmas, to go to 28 schools. And the 150
Good
kids that we
grief.
were able to touch that first year has now expanded and mushroomed upward into, will be a little over 18,000 children and their family
goodness.
members this year that
you
we'll
guys
be serving.
and it's not stopping. Every year you grow.
Tom, it's amazing. I've gone from where I looked and begged for schools to go to where we don't have to do that any longer. Places find us.
They find you. Yeah.
And we can't just add every school that the principal writes us from, but it's been a neat way we've evolved.
Emmette Thompson, Executive Director of Mission of Hope. We're just scratching the surface because I really want to get what fuels you, what your passion is. We'll talk about that in a second. You're listening to Dealing with Life, but there's some times where we have to deal with our teeth. Sometimes our issues are as simple as a cleaning, and sometimes they can be a lot more complicated. And that's where you need somebody you can trust, somebody you know can handle the problem that you might be facing, or at least diagnose and tell you exactly what needs to happen. That's where Dr. Stephen Malone comes in. I've been a patient of his at Malone Dentistry for the last 20 years, and he's been around in this area for 20 years. He knows what he's doing. He's got a staff of 15, and you can trust him. You feel like a member of his family, which just means so much when you come in a little nervous and say, I don't know what this is all going to take, but he can help you. And he knows what he's doing. He does all aspects from cosmetic to preventative to a whole mouth makeover. And he has just recently welcomed Dr. Aaron Noble to the staff. Malone Dentistry, right off of Kingston Pike on South Peters Road. Go to KnoxvilleSmiles.com. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. We'll deal with more in just a minute.
Whatever it takes, 'cause I love the adrenaline in my veins. I do whatever it takes. I've seen miracles just happen. Silent prayers get answered. Broken hearts become brand new. That's what faith can do.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker, and I'm so happy that you have joined in on the conversation. Today's program is brought to you by Malone Dentistry. We have in the studio today Emmette Thompson, who is executive director of Mission of Hope. And we've just really scratched the surface about what you guys do and who you help. It's really the Appalachian community.
It is.
That you guys do your best to help in the poverty.
That's correct.
But what I want to dig into before we amplify more about what you do is you. What fueled you? I know we talked about how you got into it, but where your passion was born, and I know it's God-given through the Spirit. But tell us your story.
Well, we've all got a story, Tom. I believe that. That's
Sure.
kind of a Pollyannish statement, but it's true.
We do.
We've all got a story, and once again, to be careful not to go off on a windy tangent here. My story begins as a child. I'm actually from a small town in North Carolina called Salisbury.
Okay.
Salisbury,
Named after the steak?
No, not really.
Okay.
Salisbury is right between Charlotte and Greensboro. It's actually known for a beautiful old historic district. I grew up there. I like to tell people Salisbury is the home to Food Line grocery chain.
Oh, okay.
It's home to Catawba College, which a lot of people in the area here know is a big sports rival of Carson Newman
it is.
and Tusculum and all that.
Right.
But for our family, it's the home to the greatest soft drink in America. It's called Chairwine. It's cherry cola. Chairwine.
Okay.
It's 100 years old this year. And I told a group over the weekend, the trifecta in Salisbury is barbecue, slaw, and Chairwine. And our barbecue,
You're living it when you got that.
Let me tell you, my mouth's watering right now. Barbecue Carolina style is vinegar based, and the
Okay.
slaw is as well.
Okay.
But all that said, I grew up there. Have one sister, 6 years older than me. Our mother had a very debilitating disease when I was a little boy, and she died, and my father never remarried.
Okay.
As fate and God would have it, after college, I moved. A job offer took me to Nashville, Tennessee, and after being there for a couple of years, I met a dear young lady that God put us in each other's life journey path. Her name is Valerie.
And you were fortunate to listen.
Well, I'm one very good at listening
You're
back
right.
then. When I met Valerie and we went out, we found out immediately we had a whole lot in common. But Valerie's mother had a very serious disease and died when she was a young girl, and her dad never
Okay.
remarried. And that's been a special part of
A little
our journey
bond,
through
yeah.
life. Valerie is from the tip end of Virginia that touches Tennessee and Kentucky. We were married in 1985. We had the opportunity to move here. But if I tell the rest of the story, it's kind of like the movie The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. As a little boy, a lot of folks in our town thought I was going to be the first preacher in the family.
All right.
And I was headed to seminary, and I got sidetracked. It was my responsibility.
I can
and
see
my
why
fault
they say
that I
that.
got sidetracked.
You're not shy about your faith.
And it's interesting how God can work in your life's journey path. I fell away, but I always had this cessation of where I needed to be. And, God put a woman who prayed me to change in my life, and one thing led to another. I recommitted my life to the Lord and was baptized in 89.
Praise
And,
God.
since that point, things worked for me to be in ministry in a non-pastoral way.
Sure.
I'm not worthy to carry
You don't
any
have to
pastor's-
be a pastor
You
to be
don't.
a minister.
And I'm not worthy to carry a pastor's Bible case, but I've been given a neat opportunity and privilege. Tom, I look at the visual for some of us, at least for me, kind of like when you're in a boat about to go over a waterfall and it's filled with holes, and God lifts you up and sets you on the bank and says, I'm going to give you one more chance.
One more try.
And my one more chance came almost 35 plus years ago now.
Wow. I'm not so sure
25
how many
plus
boats
years
I've
ago. I
been
can't
in
even
that
count.
were in that.
Well, hey,
that
I've been in
shape.
more than one boat,
Yeah.
but the one that
God.
really... So from that moment, we actually moved here. I used to be in a whole different industry. I worked in healthcare furnishings and specialty product sales, not
Okay.
pharmaceuticals, but different way of
It
everything
ain't
in
this.
my life.
Yeah.
And through a neat series of events, and for time's sake, when I erase the line in the sand that I had put out, that I'll do this and I won't do that, God, a really neat thing happened within months, really.
And he's that way. When you just open your heart enough, man, the opportunities just slap you in the face.
You know, we all tend to want to say, I'll do this and I'll do that, but I'm not going to give you this. And I think that alone is an obedience issue. It is. It is. It could be whatever, but I almost visualize God saying, well, okay, I'm going to let you wander through Ulcer Gulch as long as you want to go there, but when you get ready. And so through that, we actually moved up here from Nashville. And I really was feeling that, you know, something was happening, that I needed to make a whole 180-degree change. And it turned out I took a course called Experiencing God, first time it was ever offered at our church, and it was life-changing for me. There are a lot of people, no doubt, in your audience that have taken that church here in Knoxville and all over the country and the world now. Yeah. But that really, I give that program credit for kind of a grassroots change for me, and one thing led to another. That's
a great story.
I got involved in disaster relief.
Okay.
And I actually came back from a trip, and I went to work managing a Christian bookstore here in the area.
Oh, nice.
And that's where I met my dear friend Bob Bell from WRJZ.
I know that
and
guy.
Some others that are
Bob's
in heaven now that used to work with that station. He is a good man.
Yeah.
Got a very powerful testimony himself.
He does.
So through a sequence of events, you know, God took me in a totally unexpected way. And I would encourage people, I'm back out of Mission to Hope mode for a moment, Tom, into a kind of a teaching idea.
A faith moment.
We have to be real careful that we don't box in, you know, Roman numeral 1, subpoint 1a, subpoint 1a1, because God may not come from that direction.
No, he usually comes from the unexpected.
He does. I heard this years ago. I can't take credit for it, but it applies to me. Sometimes we're walking towards a building and the front door is locked. And before we walk away from the building, it may be God wants us to come around to a different entrance.
Yeah.
There
may be a few things you have to learn as you walk to the side entrance, but by the time you get there, you're prepared.
And, you know, for me, that bridge change, so to speak, career-wise, really is what led to this in an interesting roundabout way.
I get that.
I ran this managed this Christian bookstore for a few years, and I just really had a desire to kind of do my own kind of business, and do senior adult conferences and youth conferences with kind of a bookstore kind of thing on site.
Okay.
Did some of those for years, a few years up in the Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area, but I was having to do 2 or 3 things, to be totally honest about it. And if not for my wife's blessed real estate business, who I thank God that he blessed her business to be really the main breadwinner at our home.
Yeah.
And I finally got a lot of that out of my system. And actually, I had an accident and injured my knee helping a friend of mine paint his house in 1999. And my pastor asked me if I would go represent him at a first ever Appalachian ministry conference in Roanoke, Virginia. I couldn't drive, and I had to ride with somebody, and it turned out the gentleman I rode with was one of the first Mission of Hope board members, and I didn't even know it. They had formed a board, gotten their 501c3, and I went, and Tom, I fell in love, and to this day, because we serve so many of these wonderful, godly men and women that are God's missionaries on the front line in rural Appalachian areas.
Okay.
That's who was there at this conference.
That's who you went with the first time.
And I went with the guy that was there to learn more about them. And he shared with me about the board's vision, prayerful desire to go to year-round ministry, and they wanted to hire a director. And I interviewed for it, and I are the one they got.
That is awesome. What a story.
But Tom, on a lighthearted note, when I share this with a big group, I do come back to the point that you could say I fell into this ministry after falling off that house.
That's awesome.
It doesn't sound good and get laughs in a church, and it won't.
That's okay. That's okay, but it completes the picture.
No, it
because
does.
that's how God works.
It is.
What looks like a disaster, or what looks like a
Exactly.
problem, turns out to be the greatest blessing.
And I think for me, on a pride issue, if I'm just totally honest about it, I had wanted so badly to do something, and it was glaringly apparent to me it wasn't working. I've shared with you already, and being slow to catch on sometimes you have to have a powerful moment of acknowledgement of this is not what you need to do.
Well, God's beaten me on the side of the head a couple of times because I just am too hard-headed to turn. And he has a way of just continuing to knock until we look, and that's great.
Well, I got to say this before we leave this part of sharing, because if I didn't, I don't think it's an honest admission. I have been blessed that God gave me more than one chance to get things right and bring me full 180 degrees on a ministry path that I feel privileged to still be on. I don't know how long. I don't know how I'm supposed to finish my career. None of us really do that.
No, we don't. We just look at today.
But I'm immensely grateful. I'm humbly grateful for it. But I will say I've got many shortcomings, and if my wife was here, she would amen that. But
she would add to the list, as mine would. Yeah,
she would. I have a history of maybe perhaps worrying more about what the 1 in 100 thinks or says than the 99 in 100 thinks or says.
Sure, that's a human quality.
And Tom, I'm asked on occasion, and I did it just in recent days, speaking to a large group, to not only talk about Mission of Hope, but work some ministry, some lessons, some Sunday school kind of ideas into this, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this, and it works for me. So childlike faith is not hard for me. I can be in that world. But I think the visual for all of us, if we're brutally honest, is this. Tom, every day we get up and we go into the swimming pool building of life. And there's certain days when we don't want to get up, number one, much less walk into that building. But we do because our faith says that's what we do.
It pulls on us.
So we climb up that diving board of life, and we don't want to go out to the end. We're dealing with gut-wrenching things. If people knew, they'd judge us differently, health issues, unknowns. But we do because that's what we're supposed to do. And there are days, Tom, if we're brutally honest, that we just turn around and say, Lord, I'm not coming in today. I just
don't
can't
feel
do
like
it. So we go back, but something amazing happens, hopefully. And I will tell you, the definition of hope we use at the Mission of Hope, it's the confident expectation of good. It's not the entitled to. It's not the I'm owed. It's the confident expectation of good. So when you go back and turn around and don't go down those stairs of that swimming pool building of life ladder, you go right out to the end because you hope and you pray and you have faith. As you look out into that pool of life, God, please put water in there because I'm jumping in again today.
What a visual. That's wonderful.
It's worked for me, Tom, and it's worked for me in a lot of ways. And I think for all of us, every day there's a lot of challenges, and I try to remember that for others. I try to remember it for my own self and family. But, our faith is what makes us dive into the pool. Yeah. And we hope that God's put water in there for us.
And that's going to be good. That's wonderful. Emmette Thompson, Executive Director of the Mission of Hope. I'm excited about talking more about who you help, how you help them, and the areas that you cover on the Mission of Hope. But first, I want to talk about a dear friend of mine, Dr. Stephen Malone of Malone Dentistry. I have been a patient of his ever since they opened the door 20 years ago here in town. I trust him like a dear family member. And why? Because he treats me like a family member whenever I have an issue in my mouth. From a cleaning to real restorative processes, he does it all. Cosmetic. He will create a plan for your mouth that is not only healthy, comfortable, but it'll give you confidence. Dr. Malone and his staff of 15 are honest, experienced, and offer you tremendous personal care. right off Kingston Pike on South Peters Road, Malone Dentistry, KnoxvilleSmiles.com. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. We'll deal with more in just a minute.
There ain't nothing gonna steal my joy.
Help you out.
Help me out.
Help me out.
Help me out.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. That's what we're talking about, helping people out. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. In the studio today is Emmette Thompson, Executive Director of the Mission of Hope. Emmette, we've talked about your passion and a little bit about your history leading you here, but let's talk about who Mission of Hope helps.
Tom, I appreciate the chance to do that because going back to our first segment, you know, I love this. Every bit of this could have died on an editing floor when Bill did his first story back in 95.
Yeah.
But, you know, what really happened, it's a great example of from the first event, then, you know, the energy from some local churches and civic groups and whatnot.
For those who missed it, WBIR kind of started this with Bill Williams.
Yes, they really did. I mean, it was Bill's story that birthed the passion in Julie Holland, who would be our founder.
Right.
Julie dealt with some health issues and was only involved for the first couple of years. It was really just a Christmas ministry only the first couple of years.
Okay.
And between that and caregiving for an ailing family member who eventually passed away and just raising some small kids, kind of what happened is when the decision was prayerfully made by the original board of directors to get a 501c3, try to see what we could do to do year-round work.
Make it something.
And hire somebody.
Yeah.
There was really, I didn't really have a whole lot of, you know, notes and references to go, but the vision, Tom, from the outset really kind of extends to this day. It was to try to find in the mission field, we hung our hat. And just for your listeners' reference point, we have intentionally used the criteria by the Appalachian Regional Commission as the predeterminant of why we go where we go. They're the granddaddy of tracking poverty in America. And most people, starting with me, never would imagine that the Appalachia they coined and defined to this day back from the early 60s, it's bits and pieces of the bottom of New York State, some of New Jersey, Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Alabama, North Georgia.
It's a big stretch.
It's a big, but if you took that huge map, the Appalachian Mountains, essentially, and superimposed something oblong, kind of like a watermelon on top of it, that's the former coal belt seam. And that's where the greatest need is.
Where the former coal towns.
It is.
Yeah.
And let me say this, Tom. I stay out of politics and church politics.
You're smart.
I tell
you said
folks,
you weren't smart, but
I'm
you are.
not. I'm not. I tell folks all the time, you and I are close to the same age. I love to be like Schultz on Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing and don't want to know nothing.
Yes.
But seriously, you know, right, wrong, or indifferent, politically correct or not, the truth is the coal mining income is the greatest source of income that'll come out of most of these mountains because of the geographical challenges, the logistical challenges. There are not many manufacturing plants in the areas we go to.
No. Most
of the communities we serve will never be near an interstate highway. But that's our mission field. That's what we were birthed out of. But the ARC, the Appalachian Regional Commission, they have a great website, by the way, arc.gov.
Okay.
They update routinely what they keep as the poorest counties in Appalachia list. Those are the counties we serve.
You target those.
And we're barely covering a speck of it. We are in Northeast Tennessee, Southeast Kentucky, and Southwest Virginia counties.
And that's still a pretty large
area.
It
is, and we've just kind of evolved where we go. We try to keep adding places.
I was going to say, does the circle widen?
We hope it will. I mean, we've been blessed to do that.
But it's manpower and it's dollars.
It is. And in those areas, I did mention to you off the air, I think it's a good visual. It works for me, and I think a lot of folks, for time's sake, we minister. We've kind of evolved into ministry, Tom, like a tree. We serve through 2 roots and 7 branches. The roots are how we get to the poor.
Okay.
We work through schools, elementary schools, using the free lunch percentage criteria as the determinant in those poorest counties.
That's smart.
We
yeah.
try to go to the highest free lunch percentage schools. Those 28 schools we're preparing to serve for Christmas, almost all of those are in the 90 to 95 percentile. We've got 3 this year are 100% free and reduced lunch.
Wow.
So you see, that's an affirmation to us that they can use our help.
They need help. Yeah.
The other route, Tom, which is to me some of the most godly men and women I'll know this side of heaven, it's those mom and pop ministries, as we love to call them, that are set up in those areas, all through rural America, but closer in rural Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
More often than not, in the middle of Nowhereville, you've got the individual, the couple that were heartbroken to help the poor. So they begged for the empty storefront building, and they started the clothing closet, the food pantry, the furniture ministry, and they do Christian counseling.
They just answered the call.
They did, but they hit a wall immediately, Tom. There are no First Baptist, First Methodist, First Pres big churches there that can cut them a check every month to buy food with.
Yeah, that has the church power.
There's no industrial parks with ABC widget companies there that can adopt them and send it. So
they're just struggling day by day.
They are. So that is where we created our first branch of resource distribution.
Oh, okay.
We actually were like gypsies from when we started. We moved over and over. We always had a donor friend loan us a building, which was a blessing, but invariably they need it back. So God worked it out for us to have a 23,000 square foot warehouse and office in February of 2008.
Wow.
We lovingly call it our home for the hope. And Tom, the best feature in the building is every penny was given to buy it. So we have no debt.
No debt.
That allowed us to go out and start pursuing some really interesting donations that have continued to this day. We've probably been given between 11 and 12 tractor trailer loads of used hotel furniture.
What?
That is
That's
good
so
furniture
cool.
for the people we help.
Yeah.
I learned, on somewhat of a sad note, in the hospitality industry, you pretty much as a franchise owner have to replace, refresh, replenish your furniture, whether it's worn out or not, every 5 to 7 years, just to stay competitive.
And you can't do anything with it.
Most people consider it a trap for water, whatever, if it's out in the parking lot, so they'll pay to have it hauled off. We love to get that kind of furniture. We do not advertise for used items, Tom, but for those that come in or our wonderful volunteers pick up with our trucks.
Okay.
Our typical load to a school principal and resource center or a mom and pop minister, Brother Tom and his wife, is food, furniture, clothing, hygiene, appliances, whatever we have,
Basic
Bibles
needs.
and tracts,
Yeah.
for them to give out there. And let me tell you why those two routes have worked well for us. That's our accountability gauge.
Okay.
We go as close as an hour and 15 minutes from Knoxville. We go as far as 5 hours from Knoxville. I wouldn't have a clue if those families that call us in those areas are legit or not. Principal Tom, if you would, Pastor Tom does. So that's why we work through those routes.
Okay, that makes sense.
In our branches of assistance, number one, that resource branch is whatever we get that we don't even advertise for.
Yeah.
The second and third branch are what we do at the schools. We have an incredible back-to-school program that we go in when school starts at these 28 schools this past August and set up a school supply store on 8-foot tables. And our volunteers shop with these little kids. Most of our elementary schools just go to 5th or 6th grade. Some go to 7th and 8th, and if they do, we help them too.
Okay.
But it's a wonderful program. Christmas for us is magical. It is what a lot of people over the years have seen Channel 10 stories on or heard about.
It's where it's really amplified.
It really is, and it's driven by volunteers. We don't have a written agreement with anybody, but it's where we go in after getting information from the principal. We build a toy store in the gym on 8-foot tables, pile them ridiculously high, cover them with black plastic. We get on either side of the gym door and greet these kids and high-five them. We do a brief program. We don't mandate that anybody has to do this or take that, but we want, and I want for us always to make sure anybody within our reach of assistance knows we'll never bring anything on a Mission of Hope truck more important than letting them know God loves them and Jesus is their greatest hope. It's not anything we brought today. So our fourth branch became healthcare in kind of a roundabout way. I realized a lot of these little mom and pop ministries, they need to address that. We do not do healthcare clinics. We are not set up to do that.
Sure.
But if I find a ministry trying to put one on, we might be a quiet underwriter.
No, you could help or facilitate.
Yes, and we might, through our Mission of Hope friends that are doctors, dentists, eye doctors,
Sure.
encourage them to go. Our fifth branch is construction. We just wrapped up last week the last project this year. We're not trying to build houses like Habitat for Humanity, an incredible group.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized a few years ago, Tom, every community has got the widow's house that should have been painted years ago. Maybe needs the small repair
just
and
just
the handicap
freshening.
ramp.
Oh, yes.
Which is big.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
needed up the road.
Okay.
That's needed everywhere. So
And,
we do that.
and you don't have to. You just have to have the know-how to be able to do that.
You know,
not
you
a
really
construction
do.
license.
And,
Yeah.
and I tell you what, we are blessed to have men and some women that know what they're doing. I have no construction ability. My wife says I have a toolbox, but I've never figured out how to open it, and it's probably going to stay that way. But I love it when we do that. We always, if possible, roll the recipient out, pray for them, make sure if they don't and want to know that Jesus is their, once again, greatest provider. And that's a neat part of our ministry there. Sixth branch for us is scholarship. And time won't allow it, Tom, but basically, when we got our building, got it paid off, I never intended to buy toys for high school kids, but I felt like we could give scholarships out at high schools in these
wow,
areas.
yeah.
And that's what we do.
Nice.
We have two endowments, one in the Bill Williams family name in honor of their son Michael,
Okay.
who died young from colon cancer, at a very special place called Alice Lloyd College. Like Berea, two of only 7 working colleges left in America. Every student that goes there doesn't pay a penny. The school raises the funds for them.
That's a magic.
Our
Just
other-
total magic.
It's been so neat. Our other endowment is at LMU, Lincoln Memorial University, in honor of another Mission of Hope friend who died way too young in life, Andrew Courtney.
So you offer scholarships.
We do,
From-
but
to
the
those.
real blessing of how we've grown scholarship, Tom, is we have been helping since 2009 give a high school senior a scholarship at every high school in the town we go to, an elementary school.
My. Wow.
And we've got 44 graduates from some 2 or 4 year college. As we sit here, we've got 51 kids on active scholarship, about to have 6 more graduate. And we're just trying to help those that dare to dream get their dreams. We target the B2C student
Okay.
instead of the straight A kid. We found the principal can normally help them get one. Our 7th branch is evangelism, and it's something that I really cherish. We started a few years ago picking mountain ministry centers so many times a year, asking them to get a loan venue. Sometimes it's a church gym, a closed school. In Hazard, it's the National Guard Army up on top of a hill.
All right.
But we load trucks one day, we drive up the next day, set up, and do a giveaway to the community the next day. And we have an evangelism team as well. But those are the events where we very much
You open people's eyes to Jesus.
We try to.
Yeah,
we
that's
really do.
amazing. Mission of Hope. What? I mean, just there's so many things, so many facets of it. 7 at least, if not more. Emmette Thompson is with us, and we want to hear in a moment how people can help. And this also, you've got a major event that's just about to happen.
Sure do.
This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. We've got more in just a second.
Do you believe that you can walk on water? Do you believe that you can win this fight tonight? Oh, to everyone who's hit their limit, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. And even when you think you're finished, it's not over yet, it's not over yet. Keep on fighting, out in the dark, into the light. It's not over, hope is rising. Never give in, never give up, it's not over.
You're listening to Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. Today's show brought to you by Malone Dentistry. In the studio today, Emmette Thompson, with Mission of Hope. And we've talked about all the people that you help in the areas and the regions in the Appalachian community, which are so needed. Your services are so needed, but you have ways for people to help you help others. What is one? We're going to talk about the event in a second, but tell me how would somebody contact you to help?
Let me tell you, Tom, we're always grateful for resource donations, financial donations. God bless people who have that giving spirit, but we're in the middle of something that no doubt other nonprofits experience from time to time. The heroes of the hope are our volunteers.
Sure.
We have a very small staff. Our operations manager and my dear left and right arm assistant is Shirley Plant.
Okay.
Our operations assistant, our newest employee, Laura Peck, our administrative assistant, Diane Webster, and our financial assistant, a part-timer, Lisa Medley, and myself are the staff of Mission of Hope. So the volunteers that deem this worthy have been a blessing.
They are the legs.
They really are. And it's corporate America would be well served to see how we do this day to day at our warehouse, I feel. But this past year, we've lost some real heroes that God's called home. We've had others, since so many of our folks are retired and can work during the day when,
right.
Quite frankly, a lot of young families are still, adults are working. We've got a lot that, due to illness or injury, just can't play this year. So,
you're in need.
I have been trying to encourage volunteers. Best way to learn more about us than you've gotten to hear today is going to our website at www.missionofhope.org.
Okay.
Missionofhope.org. Or our phone number in Knoxville is 865-584-7571.
If you feel God tugging at your heart to say you need to help, and you've just been looking for the right avenue to help people, this is helping people. And again, it's Mission of Hope. Now let's talk about the event that's tomorrow, because you got some big doings going on.
You know we do, brother. Christmas has become bigger and bigger each year. Tomorrow begins our 22nd Christmas campaign. We always start our appeal the Friday before Thanksgiving. We're the ones that put out the blue barrels all over East Tennessee. That's become synonymous with what we do.
Sure, and I've seen those.
Well, there's a teaching lesson there, Tom. That's a great chance for Mom and Dad to take Johnny and Susie and buy something like they'd want and put in the barrel.
Okay.
And we've just kind of grown in the number of sponsors we have. We're very appreciative of all those that play a role in that. You can learn every location once again by going to our website. But we have some signature events now that it blesses my heart. I'll start tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. at the Chick-fil-A Clinton Highway with our own brother Bob Bell on WRJZ's morning show. Absolutely. Channel 10 always joins us there because I can't be at two places at one time.
So they come find you.
They do. We have other radio sponsors, the Cumulus family, WIVK, 98.7.
So you got some big media arm behind this.
The Sports Animal, the News Sentinel.
Yeah.
But we'll culminate with something that's really gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and we're blessed they choose us to do this for. A couple of years ago, the Pinnacle at Turkey Creek hired a new manager who came from Canada, who had a real passion and desire for promoting at Christmas with a signature kickoff event for some nonprofit. And when he moved here, he learned about us.
That's great.
They put up this tremendous tree over the fountain at Turkey Creek, kind of near the area of where Bonefish and Panera and Fleming's is. They corner off that whole parking lot. They put up a stage. They have singing groups, carolers.
Wow.
They have food trucks. They'll have real reindeer. I think this year they're having that. Pictures with Santas. They have a little car that families and children, train car that goes through the parking lot. It's just a lot of activities. They will have barrels there to collect items.
Okay.
Financial donations will be welcomed as well. But it's where they officially kick off their Christmas retail season for Turkey Creek.
Okay.
And we love it.
And what day is that?
That's Friday, November 17th. The activities start at 4. This is a wonderful, fairly new tradition for us. And we have something on the Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend that has become probably the most elegant thing we have done for us. This year, for the 4th year in a row, Tom, we have a Keyboards at Christmas concert at Tennessee Theater.
Oh, nice.
The lady that heads this did it for about 10 years and stopped doing it. Her name's Donna McNeely. It's 6 grand pianos on a stage. They play at the same time. The stage is decorated beautifully. It's incredible, the atmosphere down there, doing it there.
Wow.
And it is a financial fundraiser
For
Mission of Hope. The tickets are very reasonable, but we had to add a matinee performance. So,
because it's sold out.
yes.
Good grief.
2:30
That's great.
and 6 o'clock. You can go to TennesseeTheater.com to learn out how to get tickets there.
Okay.
But it's an incredible way to start the Christmas season. We lift that organ that comes up out of the
Yes.
floor, and we have first responders and sometimes veterans on there. So it's a powerful evening. Russell Bevan and I will be taking turns doing the rambling or emceeing.
Okay.
So it's a fun
So
event.
there's opportunities to help.
Yeah.
And once again, the website.
Website, missionofhope.org.
That's terrific. Emmette Thompson has really enlightened all of us on what Mission of Hope does, who you serve, and how we can help. That's wonderful. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Tom, thank you not only for this privilege, but for what you are meaning to God's kingdom work for folks like us. This has been a blessing for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. You know, God is on a mission of hope too with us. He is trying to make sure we understand that no matter what's going on, we do have hope. This is Dealing with Life. I'm Tom Baker. Today's program brought to you by Malone Dentistry. I pray that you choose to see the hope that Christ has for you.
You speak